Rams! I'm Pat Mayo with a quick fantasy football update for Tuesday, September 17th. If you want the cheat sheet of updated pickups and injuries, hit the description. It's all in the Mayo Media newsletter. Right now, that link is down there. Subscribe to this channel, by the way, and the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, because every Monday I go team by team, player by player, ads, drops, in-depth on the waiver wire, injuries, situations, and buy low with Jake Seeley. If you're missing Jake, he's on Mondays. That show is out right now. So please, if you got an hour on your hands to listen to more analysis, I'd suggest you go check that out. But this is the quick update. We'll review Monday Night Football. Atlanta beats Philly 22-21. Maybe I had underrated the secondary of the Atlanta Falcons. It was hard to tell in week 1 against the Steelers because they really can't pass. So you just assume whatever, they're probably bad. But no, turns out that's not so much the case. Or missing A.J. Brown was wildly detrimental to the passing offense of the Philadelphia Eagles. Devonta Smith got his marginally. He did drop a second touchdown in the game, but it's not like he had over 100 yards in the contest. So, look, Goddard did nothing. The rotational wide receivers for the Eagles did absolutely nothing. The passing game looked bad. So either it's some mix between the both, which it probably is, or Atlanta's pass D is quite good. Their offensive line stinks. Their defensive line stinks, but the secondary could be quite good. And the offense for Atlanta looked pretty good as well. In terms of snaps, Jahan Dotson was the one who stepped in for A.J. Brown, who is now reported to miss at least a couple more weeks with this hamstring injury. So he played 57 of 72 snaps and ran 30 routes, but only ended up with 1 target. He has zero chemistry with Jalen Hurts right now. It was actually Britton Covey who ended up with 6 targets on 17 routes run, 2 of them coming inside the 20-yard line as well. So he was a package player, but the valuable package where he might end up catching a touchdown. You probably don't want to pick any of these guys up. Johnny Wilson entered the game, the rookie, with a hamstring injury he suffered over the weekend, so maybe that limited him a little bit. He only played 19 of 71 snaps. Paris Campbell got in the mix after being elevated from the practice squad as well, but it looks like it's going to be Goddard on the field at all times, Smith on the field at all times, Dotson out there most of the time, and those 3 guys running a rotation with Covey running the most valuable routes right now. None of these guys are pickups. You play Smith, you might want to play Goddard. We'll see about that, but the passing offense looks a bit out of sorts when you are missing your number 1 option. On the other side of the ball, Kirk looked good. Cousins and Rodgers week 2 with the Achilles injuries coming back from the offseason looked much better in week 2 than week 1, but what we saw were 3 wide receiver personnel primarily from the Falcons, with Mooney, Ray, and Drake London on the field at almost all times. Pitts was only on the field around 67% of the time, which is problematic for a guy who wasn't a volume player to begin with. Much like Goddard, he's at the very low end of the top 10 tight ends going forward. We'll see if this sticks into week 3 and week 4, this rotation of receivers and tight end. But if Pitts isn't going to be out there 100% of the time, that's kind of the reason that you drafted him, that he would have that bulk, he would have that opportunity, he would have that volume, and we're just not seeing that right now. Algier ended up with 9 carries, but he only played 13 snaps in the game. So if Tyler Algier is on the field, he's probably getting the ball. 7 carries on 13 snaps. Let me update myself on that one. But he was used in the inside the 20-yard line a bunch, so he's going to steal a few touchdowns from Bijan. That's never any fun, now is it? News last night that we got that DEEBO Samuel injured his calf, and he's going to be out a couple weeks. This is terrible news, because Ayuk's conditioning is probably not up to snuff, but they have to use him at this point. Juwan Jennings ends up on the wide receiver pickup list. All of a sudden, he comes inside the top 5. Again, you can find all of the details in the description right now. It's going to hamper the San Francisco offense. Probably more for Ayuk. Jennings was already running a ton of routes as it is, so he's probably a pretty decent pickup wide receiver 4 for the week going forward. Cooper Kupp, we had worries after spotting him in a walking boot after the Arizona game, and he has a substantial injury. We don't know when he's going to be placed on IR, but he's going to miss, quote, a significant amount of time. That is terrible. Terrible news. So now you have your choice between last week's Demarcus Robinson, and then you have Tutu Atwell, who ended up with 4 targets on 8 routes run, Tyler Johnson. Jake and I did break this down on the Monday show a bit more in depth, but it's actually Jordan Whittington who played every single one of Cooper Kupp's snaps the moment that Kupp left the game. He is the pickup that you want from the Rams. Not like he's a must start by any means, but if you're going to find someone who's on the field basically 100% of the time, who's going to run those valuable routes that Kupp Kupp ran, it's going to be Whittington. So he had no value with Kupp in because that was the 1v1 primary guy that he was going to replace. With Kupp out, he is the pickup that you're going to want to have this week. Kareem Hunt is now visiting with the Kansas City Chiefs because Isaiah Pacheco is going to be out 6 to 12 weeks with a broken fibula. He's going to injured reserve. So right now, again, Jake and I discussed this out. He likes Carson Steele more than Samaje Perine as a pickup. I have them 1 and 2, but I have Perine ahead of Steele. And listen, Carson Steele is probably going to end up with some of these high leverage touches, short yardage, goal line, maybe. But maybe it's because that Perine got there 2 weeks ago, doesn't know the full playbook. Here's the problem with spending too much fab on any of these guys in fantasy. Kareem Hunt could be walking in the door. Leonard Fournette could be walking in the door. And then by week 5, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is eligible to return. You could have 4 running backs in this backfield. I don't think that any one of them seizes the job. You're going to see a rotation from them. So decent pickups, yes, they're number 1 and 2 in the rankings, but none of them are must-haves for your team. Like if you pick up Carson Steele and you play him in week number 3, there's a chance he has 3 points. It's not like he's just going to have 80% of the snaps and 70% of the touches. That's unlikely to happen. I suppose it could happen. It's just unlikely to happen. I would go with the receiving game work of Perine. Maybe he can sneak in a touchdown and work in that Jarek role that we saw, where some of the other guys might end up in a rotation as the primary runners out of the backfield for Kansas City. Joe Mixon, it came out that his ankle injury is not super serious. He's day-to-day. He's probably going to play in week number 3. We'll see how the practice reports go throughout the week. There's still a chance that he could miss. Dameon Pierce has been fast-tracked with his hamstring injury and should return in week number 3. So if you're looking for the replacement for Joe Mixon, should he miss the game, it would be Pierce over Cam Akers, unless Pierce obviously didn't play. Then you wouldn't want to play him. If he's not playing, don't play him. It's my hot take advice right now. However, it would be Pierce over Cam Akers should Mixon miss time, but fortunately, he seems to be okay. Bryce Young has been benched by the Carolina Panthers. They're in Vegas this week. The Red Rocket Andy Dalton is starting. This is good news for Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen. I don't think it's great news for Xavier Legette as of right now, because Dalton, what is he going to do? And what did we see from him a year ago? He loved Thielen because he likes precise route runners. And that's all Carolina had last year was Adam Thielen. But Deontay Johnson's still one of the most crisp route runners in football. So I would expect both of those guys to see their target share go way up and the actual reception total and yardage go way up with Andy Dalton throwing the ball. I don't expect Andy to drop 360 like he did against Seattle in week 2 last year, but this offense should show a modicum of a pulse this week against the Raiders. Maybe even Chuba Hubbard out of the backfield could end up being a decent play. I would expect both Thielen and Johnson to come inside the top 50 in rankings at wide receiver this week when I release them on Wednesday afternoon. You got to be subbed to the newsletter in order to find those, and they'll get sent directly to you the moment they are released. So go do that in the description right now and sub to Mayo Media Network. Final thing, Jordan Love. This is a quote from Matt LaFleur. He told reporters that if he were to play in week 3 against the Titans, that would be ideal for him to be able to practice sometime during the week, aka Jordan Love's probably not playing this week. So keep that in mind. We're going to get another week of Malik Willis and a downgrade for all your Packers players, except for Josh Jacobs, who might end up with 300 carries in the game. Wouldn't that be nice? Smash like while you're here, sub to the channel, sub to the newsletter, and use code MAYO at Underdog Fantasy for a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. I'll see you tomorrow.
Mayo experience! Experience!